Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, we begin with cricket. West Indies have announced their squads to tour Bangladesh from January 10 to February 15 next year for 3 one-day internationals and 2 tests. The squads are without 12 senior players, 10 of whom have made themselves unavailable due to health and safety concerns. The other 2 have cited personal reasons for their unavailability. Now, Test captain Jason Holder and white ball skipper Pollard are among those not travelling. Cricket West Indies Chief Executive Johnny Grave has reiterated that players have the option of opting out of an overseas tour over safety concerns. He says a decision to opt out of a tour will not count against the player's future selection. The chief selector, Roger Harper, says despite the absentees, he expects the team to be very competitive. And Roger joins us now. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Season's greetings to everyone.
Yes, indeed, and right back at you, the greetings reciprocated. The issue of the squads traveling to Bangladesh have no doubt caused a lot of discussion, sparked a lot of discussion in this part of the world. You have been making the rounds, trying to explain, trying to reassure, and trying to help the cricketing public make sense of what is before them. The obvious place to start, Roger Harper, is with the absentees. I'm keen to know, how did the players indicate their unavailability? Were they called individually and to a man said, I am unavailable? Did you get a block email from a group of players? How is it that this was communicated to yourself and the rest of your selection panel?
They were called individually.
All right. So the main concern, all right, the individuals that were, from the individual calls, is it that there was a uniformity in what each of those players said, or did they say different things that amounted to the reasons that CWI have published for them not being available?
I think generally they said they expressed concerns about going to Bangladesh at this time. Paraphrasing, that's what they said, generally.
Yes. The issue for me, though, and I put this to Johnny Grave yesterday, even though I knew that you would be in a better position to answer. If it is that that Cricket West Indies has made the requisite plans, sent their officials ahead to study the arrangements in Bangladesh, be satisfied that these arrangements are good enough to send a West Indies selection to the country, isn't it then disappointing in that context that if the place is safe enough for Blackwood, Ambrose and company to go and play for the West Indies, that it wasn't safe enough for Holder, Pollard and company? Isn't that their disappointment from that perspective?
Well, different people view different things from different perspectives, you know. So I think CWI has always laid that option on the table. So that was a situation where a number of players, you know, said that they were not comfortable going at this time.
But how do we manage the crucial issue, Roger, of loyalty to West Indies cricket and putting the West Indies first? The board is wrapped over the knuckles whenever it does something that doesn't seem to have the players' interests first. And here it is that players, under these circumstances and others, can choose to, well, you know, I'm not going on this tour, I'm not going on that tour. And then Cricket West Indies says, well, we won't hold this against you in the future. Is that statement really true?
Well, the president has outlined the policy, you know. He said it on a number of occasions. So that's the policy. That is what will have to be implemented and acted upon.
But pardon me for saying that the answer, not necessarily from you because you've said that the president has said so, but I've always found that explanation to be a bit thin, Roger, because here you have men with families, like everybody else, who have committed themselves to an undertaking on behalf of West Indies cricket and, of course, to their personal benefit. Why is it that they would not be given special consideration? If you don't want to call the consideration special, some kind of guided consideration in the future for what they have done for West Indies cricket in this moment? And conversely, why would those who have opted not to go not have even an asterisk beside their name for future tours or future selection?
Well, as you realize, I do not determine the policy, but this is what I want to say. I think those that have decided to go have put themselves in a position where they have the opportunity of and actually making a place for themselves in the team. That is the opportunity they have. And I think that the bunch of players that we selected here will go out there and play with passion and purpose, and and will work together and look to be competitive and make a name for themselves.
All right, Roger, can we move to the selection now? Because you had made a statement about being confident that the players will acquit themselves well on this assignment. Why would you be so confident about that, given the fact that our first team struggles at international level? Why would the fringe players come in and not fail if the preferred players have been struggling to get results?
Well, I think that you have to appreciate the fact that some of these guys, this is a golden opportunity, and I just have the feeling that they'll be looking to grab it with both hands. So like I said, I think they'll be passionate, I think they'll be very purposeful, and that they will want to make a statement. And where those qualities are in the mix, especially in great proportions, anything can happen.
Yeah, well, Roger, let me put this on the table first of all, because I have 4 decades in my job as a sports journalist, issued the statement that I sympathize with West Indies cricket selectors because you have a very tough job. Here it is, Joe Burns, the Australian opener, has lost his place in the Australian team now with a batting average of 36.97, which is higher than every single West Indies player currently playing international cricket. So I know your job is a tough one and you don't have a lot to choose from. Having said that, though, there are some selections here that have raised eyebrows. First one, Shamar Holder's omission from the Test squad is a shocker for most people, given the fact that his performance in New Zealand had tongues wagging and feeling that he is a pacer for the future for the Windies.
And I agree wholeheartedly that he is a pacer for the future for the Windies. But as I said, in interviews before, we picked a side that we thought would be best suited for the conditions we likely to face in Bangladesh. Look, when we went to England, we had a test squad and reserve where you only had 2 specialist spinners in the complete touring party, test squad and reserve. Right now we're going to Bangladesh, a totally different environment, and you have to consider as well that we have to be self-sufficient in terms of providing our own practice bowlers. We're not going to get it from anywhere else. And we like to face a lot of spin. The pitches are like to be conducive to spin, not much bounce to the fast bowlers. So, we decided to take a limited number of fast bowlers, and based on the composition that we decided to take, somebody has to be omitted, and unfortunately, just Shamar.
I'm not sure how many people will, feel less aggrieved about that selection based on what you just said, because of how extremely impressive the young fast bowler looked in New Zealand. But I hear you. The other bone of contention, Roger, is the 3 left-arm spinners in one squad. Not only 3 left-arm spinners, but 3 left-arm spinners that are finger spinners. So identical.
3 left-arm spinners?
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that.
You have Warrican, Permal, and I'm sure I saw a third one there.
Well, you see, I was of the opinion that we picked Warrican and Permal as the left-arm spinners, and Kavim Hodge as a batsman who is capable of bowling some left-arm spin.
Okay. Well, I have Kavim as a...
That is how that's the impression I was under, but if you're telling me something different, then...
Well, to be quite honest, in the club cricket that we have seen him and regional cricket that we have seen him, he has been more successful based on what I've seen as a bowler than a batsman. So I consider Kavim Hodge a left-arm spinner in the setup.
I think that's news to me. That is news to me and to the selection panel that I'll have to take back to them.
All right. Roger, as we said, your job is a tough one, and you've been robbed of the opportunity of having a full-strength team going to Bangladesh for this series. I see, as we spoke about Shamar Holder, that he's in the ODI setup, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes. So when the squad travels, it will be one squad that will travel for the entire period. So the entire team will train together.
Well,
or will they travel separately?
From my observation in New Zealand, I can't speak for Coach Simmons, but in New Zealand we had part of the T20 squad and the test squad and reserves, and the test squad and reserves practiced separately from the T20 squad. And I think the key idea was that they had different approaches to the different formats, and they wanted them to practice with those approaches in mind. But like I said, I cannot speak for Coach Simmons.
Roger, if we may go back a little bit to matters concerning selection and policy, you have made clear, and it is a truism, that the policy matters are dealt with by the president at his level. You pick the players that are available as per policy. But the true measure of commitment in team sport and in many other pursuits in life is when the athlete or the competitor is willing to place the interests of team above personal considerations. And so many people over time have equated commitment to team as the gold standard of a player's commitment to a particular cause. Commitment to West Indies teams equates to commitment to West Indies cricket. And so if we have players, for whatever reason, and I'm not from any chiding the players who've chosen not to go, but I'm just saying, if we have players for various reasons over time choosing to opt out of tours, perhaps to the public when it is convenient to them, how can a policy be crafted that allows this, perhaps even fosters this, and then gives you and your selection panel committed players down the line to select for active duty?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, maybe better directed at the president of the West Indies Cricket Board or the CEO. But I will say this, all the qualities that we would like to see in our players that represent us at the regional level, at West Indies level, at the international level, we need to ensure that we inculcate from an early age. I think very often we see players, for example, you mentioned Burns from Australia, whose test average is 36, but I think you need to take a closer look at the first class averages. And you'd realize that a number of our players are not averaging 36 runs per inning over their career at first-class cricket, right? And that tells its own story. So I think even from a territorial level, there needs to be a responsibility of producing world-class players that then can come on the international stage and showcase their skills and talents and help West Indies to become a world-class team and rise to the top of the rankings, right? I think we concentrate a lot on our players when they are selected for West Indies and want to know why they're not doing this and why they're not doing that. But I think once selected, it's not a magic wand, it's a process. And if you aren't doing it consistently at the regional level, it's very difficult to do the international level.
Finally, Roger, was there any consideration given, and I asked the question for you to answer from the perspective of you being party to these discussions or heard of these discussions happening, was there any consideration given to not sending a team to Bangladesh to play in these two series?
Again, that's a question that needs to be directed to the CEO or the president or some representative of the board. They're in a better position to answer that than I am. They make those decisions, really decide on selection issues.
Hear you on that. Thank you for your time, Roger Harper. All the best to you.
Lance, thank you very much, and all the very best to you and everyone.
Yes, Cricket West Indies Chief Selector Roger Harper. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be the last person to tell a man who considers the odds and the circumstances, especially where health and safety are concerned, that he should tour. You know, let me make that clear. But if you add the absences from this tour to the absences, individual absences, it's the first time we've had such a big group say they're not going. But if you put these numbers with individuals who've opted out of previous tours and the reasons, and you realize that never has the player in West Indies cricket had as much power as they have now. Never have the earning opportunities been so wide and varied so that a player can be comfortable or even wealthy by playing cricket so that they don't need to play for the West Indies to earn that bread or to have the door open for them to earn that bread. I say all that to say we are perhaps sliding, Lance, close to a point where the absences are going to become willy-nilly. And even if they aren't willy-nilly, they're going to be interpreted as such by the cricket-loving public. And that will add to the opprobrium over bad performances that inevitably will come when the West Indies lose games and lose series. And I'm saying that if commitment is put on trial where West Indies cricket is concerned, it may fail that test. It may lose that case, and it's going to result in a situation where it's bad for the cricket.
Yeah, you know, the fact is that we cannot, George, you nor I, can get into the minds of these players who have opted not to tour. But I accept that the bubble situation has been very stressful and it's been a difficult year, 2020. And I think I can understand to a point where at the end of the year, players are tired, you're going into a new year, the stress and the mental strain of going into another bubble situation is tough. I also think, though, that if West Indies had one in England and one in New Zealand, maybe, just maybe, the players wouldn't be so stressed and wouldn't be so fearful of COVID-19. Because I think the lack of success of this team is also, maybe subliminally, playing on the minds of some of these players and tackling another difficult tour when the last few tours have been so stressful for them results-wise.
And I'm just saying, to bookend the point, if it is safe for Ambrose, Mohammed,
yes,
Da Silva and company to go, safe enough for the West Indies to stamp the approval, to say, go ahead, you go and represent the West Indies in Bangladesh. We have made conditions, we and our Bangladeshi hosts have made conditions safe for you. Go forward and play. I'm saying that under those circumstances, it is reasonable to expect that anybody would have felt safe performing in those conditions as well. That's just the point. More cricket after the break.